The first thing I registered was the dull throb behind my eyes, a persistent drumbeat against the inside of my skull. My mind was a swamp of disjointed images, flashes from moments before I'd blacked out. There was Clara, my childhood sweetheart, a vision in her custom-made wedding gown, seated in the sleek silver wheelchair that had become her permanent throne. Then, the picture shifted to her god-nephew, Alex, dressed in a sharp black suit, kneeling before her. He was lifting the hem of her dress with a tenderness that felt all wrong, his touch leaving a flush on her cheeks that I knew wasn't just from excitement. A voice, smooth and laced with a hint of mockery, shattered the memory. "Leo, you're finally awake. Do you have any idea how much you scared Clara? Fainting like that, honestly." I lifted my head, the room slowly swimming into focus. It was the hotel lounge we'd reserved for the wedding party. And there was Alex, standing beside Clara's wheelchair, looking down at me with feigned concern. But it wasn't just him. It was what he was wearing. My suit, my wedding ring gleaming on his finger. A surge of pure, hot fury burned through the fog in my head. "Who the hell gave you the right to wear my suit and my ring?" I snarled, pushing myself into a sitting position. Alex's face went pale, his confident smirk vanishing. Clara, however, just frowned, her expression more irritated than concerned. "Leo, you fainted unexpectedly. You couldn't be at the ceremony, and the guests were all waiting. I couldn't just leave them there, could I? I had no choice but to have Alex step in for you." All the rage I felt suddenly got caught in my throat, choked by a wave of disbelief. I had poured everything into this wedding. For months I'd been working around the clock, juggling billion-dollar projects for Orion Corporation during the day and micromanaging every detail of our wedding by night, all to make it perfect for her. I remembered her complaints, her pouty voice over the phone. "Leo, the wedding is important, but you never have time for me. I'm getting jealous of your company." How could she not know what this day meant to me? And yet she had so easily, so casually, allowed Alex to take my place. The thought of calling the whole thing off, of screaming until my lungs gave out, was overwhelming. But then my eyes fell on her in that wheelchair, and the anger faltered. Her legs. She had sacrificed them to save me. Our marriage wasn't just about us. It was a strategic alliance between my family, the Vances, and her family, the Thorns. I couldn't afford to be rash. A soft knock on the door interrupted the tense silence. "Miss Thorne, the madam invites you all down for dinner," a servant's voice announced. Clara acknowledged the summons with a nod, then glanced at me, her tone dismissive. "We'll deal with this later. Let's go eat." I needed time to think, to process the absurdity of it all, so I just nodded numbly. As we made our way to the private dining room, I couldn't help but watch them. The way Clara's hand rested on Alex's arm, the way he leaned in to whisper something to her, their easy intimacy was a performance of its own, and I was the unwilling audience. In the dining room, I realized with a jolt that my parents were still here. Both our families were gathered around a massive oak table, the air thick with an unspoken tension that you could cut with a knife. The meal began in silence, the only sound the clinking of silverware against fine china. It didn't take long for the quiet to break. My mother put her chopsticks down with a sharp clatter, her voice tight with restrained anger. "Your family has truly surprised me today, letting a nephew stand in for the groom. It's unheard of." Alex immediately stood up, his lips pressed into a thin, pale line. His eyes were red-rimmed as he bowed his head in apology. "I'm so sorry. It's all my fault. I apologize to you all." The Thorne elders remained silent, their faces impassive. It was Clara who spoke, her voice cold and sharp as she defended him. "I suggested it. If you have any anger, vent it on me. Alex is just a kid." My mother looked visibly offended. Clara had always been the picture of respect and deference toward my parents. To see her so fiercely protect Alex against my own mother was jarring. I found it impossible to keep my own anger bottled up any longer. "If it was your idea," I said, my voice low and dangerous, "then shouldn't you be the one offering a sincere apology for what you've done?" Clara nodded, though her eyes held no remorse. "Leo, my oversight caused today's mess. How about this? As compensation, I'll give your family a 5% cut in the Thorne family's new commercial district project. Is that good enough?" I heard a collective intake of breath from the Thorne side of the table. 5% was worth nearly $50 million. My parents looked slightly mollified, but remained silent, leaving the decision to me. I didn't need their money, and I hated, absolutely hated the way she was trying to solve this emotional betrayal with a business transaction. But this wasn't the time or place for a full-blown confrontation. "Let's just eat," I said, refusing to look at her as I picked up some food and placed it on my parents' plates. After the strained meal, once my parents were safely in their car and on their way home, Clara and I were ushered into the Thorne family's stretch Bentley, heading to what was supposed to be our new home together. The moment we entered, the festive red decor hit me like a physical blow. There was none of the joy or anticipation I had felt when I'd painstakingly decorated this place myself. It all felt like a mockery now. Clara wheeled herself over to me, taking my cold, unresponsive hand in hers. "Leo, I'm sorry about what happened today. Please don't be mad, okay?" Her eyes held a glimmer of genuine apology, a flicker of the woman I thought I knew. But it wasn't enough to erase the image of her and Alex. So comfortable, so close. Just as I was about to finally question her, to demand the truth, her phone rang, its urgent chime shattering the fragile peace. She glanced at the screen, and her expression immediately tightened with anxiety. She took the call in the living room, but in the quiet of the house, I could clearly hear Alex's breathless, panicked voice on the other end. "Clara, I feel so bad. So hot. Please, you have to save me." I stood up, blocking her path as she made for the door. "Clara, it's our wedding night. You can't leave." She didn't even turn to look at me. "The wedding night can be postponed. Alex can't wait." Watching her walk out that door, leaving me alone in our brand-new empty life, I felt an incredible sense of the absurd. If Alex needed her, what about me? My own wedding had been completed without me, and now my wife was abandoning me on our wedding night for her nephew. For the first time in over 20 years of knowing her, loving her, a sliver of doubt began to creep into my heart. Did Clara truly love me? That night she never came back. I lay alone in our giant, ornate wedding bed, the crimson sheets feeling like a shroud. Sleep wouldn't come. When it finally did, it was haunted by the same recurring nightmare. The winding mountain road, the out-of-control truck barreling toward me, and Clara, in a final desperate act, pushing me out of the way. I survived, but she was bound to her wheelchair forever. I woke up from the dream with a gasp, rubbing my temples as I slowly pulled myself back to the present. Downstairs, the first thing I saw was Alex sitting at the dining table. He was wrapped in a pair of light blue silk pajamas that looked suspiciously like a set I owned, a look of deep, post-coital satisfaction on his face. I walked toward the table, lost in a daze. He spotted me and offered a lazy smile. "Leo, you're up. Clara and I usually have breakfast together. She didn't want me to be alone, so she brought me here last night. You don't mind, do you?" I took a long, hard look at him. Usually, when he was around Clara, he was the picture of meekness, head down, trailing behind her with a gentle and refined air. He was always so respectful to me, so polite, that even though I knew on some level that he was different, that he had an almost parasitic need for her affection, I had never given it much serious thought. A servant placed a glass of warm milk on the table in front of me. "Sir, your milk." Thanks, I mumbled, about to take a sip when it was suddenly snatched from my hands. Alex was looking at me, his expression flustered. This was meant for Clara, he said, a little too quickly. My eyebrows furrowed. Something was off. Just as I was about to question him, a strange thing happened. A sentence, clear as day, seemed to scroll across my vision, a thought so vivid it was almost audible. This has Alex's essence in it. I was taken aback, wondering if I was just sleep-deprived and hallucinating. But when I blinked and looked again, Clara had already come downstairs, taken the glass from Alex, and drained it in one go. Alex watched her, a strange smile playing on his lips. "How does the milk taste today, Clara?" he asked. She gave him a look full of meaning I couldn't decipher, but a faint, unsettling suspicion began to form in my mind. My stomach churned, and I had to rush to the bathroom where I threw up violently. When I returned to the table, the lavish spread of food held no appeal. At that moment, Clara casually suggested, "Leo, how about we go to Hawaii for our honeymoon?" I had been looking forward to our honeymoon for months, but now the thought of it filled me with dread. Besides, I knew that publicly parting ways with her so soon would create a major rift between our families and jeopardize the business alliance we had just solidified. "We should cancel," I said flatly. "The company's too busy, I can't take the time off." After that, I didn't wait for her response. I just got up and headed straight to the office. It was a long, draining day. When I finally returned home that night, Clara was nowhere to be seen. The only sign of her was a glass of warm milk on the nightstand, with a note tucked underneath. "You've worked so hard during this wedding period. Have some milk and rest well." I stared at the milky white liquid, recalling the strange message from the morning. I decided to skip it, heading straight for the shower instead. Sleep was elusive. Sometime late in the night, I was awoken by odd, stifled noises coming from the room next door. I followed the sound to the slightly ajar door, where the familiar sounds of soft moaning and gasping reached my ears. Peering through the crack, I saw Clara seated in her wheelchair, a rope held taut in her hand. The other end was wrapped around Alex's long, slender neck. He was completely unclothed, kneeling on the carpet before her, his mouth smeared with something wet and shiny. "Who makes you feel better, Alex?" Clara's voice was a trembling whisper. "Me or Leo?" Alex's response was immediate and breathless. "Of course, it's you!" I staggered back in shock, my shoulder knocking over a tall vase in the hallway. It crashed to the floor with a deafening shatter. Clara's head whipped toward the door. I instinctively flattened myself against the cold wall, my heart hammering against my ribs, trying to calm my ragged breathing. Only when the sounds from within the room resumed did I manage to silently make my way back to my own bedroom. My eyes fell on the now cold glass of milk, and another line of text floated before my vision, sharp and undeniable. "There's a sleeping pill in that milk." Unsure of what to make of this bizarre phenomenon, but trusting the chilling accuracy of the morning's warning, I called a doctor I knew and trusted. The next day I had a sample of the milk sent for testing. Soon after I got to my office, I received a text from him. "Leo, where did you get this milk?" It's laced with a powerful sedative. A heavy weight slammed into my chest, leaving a deep, hollow ache. I couldn't believe it. Clara's care for me was just a means to drug me, to keep me out of her way. I clutched my phone, my knuckles white, just as the office door was thrown open. Clara rolled in on her wheelchair, holding a thermal soup container. "Still busy? I had the servants make some pigeon soup for you. It will help you recover." I didn't move. Just a few days ago, I would have considered myself the luckiest man alive to have her care. Now all I could think about was the drugged milk and the scene I'd witnessed last night. "What exactly is going on between you and Alex?" I asked, my voice dangerously calm. A flicker of panic crossed her eyes, but she quickly masked it. "Leo, what's gotten into you? Alex is my nephew." As if to reassure me, she added, her voice softening. "He lost his parents when he was young, and he relies on me a lot. You're his uncle now, too. It's our duty to look after him." In the past, her soothing words would have worked. I would have believed I was overthinking things. Now I could only see myself as a blind fool. I didn't want to argue anymore. "I understand," I said, turning away from her. "I'm busy right now. You should head back to your company." She sensed the dismissal in my tone, and her brow furrowed. "Leo, are you holding on to some kind of misunderstanding?" she probed. I ignored her, keeping my head down, focused on a document I wasn't even reading. "No." My cold demeanor finally got to her. Her own tone grew tense and irritated. "Fine. Busy yourself, then." She placed the soup on the coffee table and turned to leave. At the door, she paused. "Leo, I've arranged for the wedding ceremony to be redone. I assure you, it will be even more extravagant than the first. Let's not jeopardize our years of history over these trivial issues." With that, she was gone. Listening to the door click shut, I felt an overwhelming wave of exhaustion. I raised my head, my gaze falling on the soup container. The sight of it made me feel suffocated. I loved Clara, or at least, the woman I thought she was. But that didn't mean I could accept this kind of betrayal. Closing my eyes, I suppressed the last vestiges of hesitation and buzzed my assistant. "Get me a full review of all active and pending projects we are working on with Phoenix Enterprises." My assistant was surprised. "Sir, is there a problem?" My eyes sharpened. "Just do it." Realizing he had overstepped, he quickly replied, "Yes, sir," and left to gather the information. I sat in my leather chair, silent for what felt like an eternity, before I got up, walked to the coffee table, and threw the soup container Clara had brought straight into the trash. I had made up my mind. I was going to leave her, but before the divorce, I was going to sever every last business tie between the Vances and the Thorns. Our families had been intertwined for decades, with countless joint investments and operations. Breaking it all off wouldn't be easy, but it had to be done. I was swamped with work all day, and it wasn't until after 9 that I finally had a moment to myself. That's when I saw the message Clara had sent 3 hours earlier. "Leo, I had Alex's things moved to the villa. He'll be living with us from now on." I stared at the message for a long time, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. Let them move in, I thought. I won't be staying there for long anyway. I put my phone down, ready to get back to work. When it buzzed again, it was Clara. "Leo, I'm downstairs at your office to drive you home. If you're not done, I'll come up." A wave of irritation washed over me. How had I never noticed how controlling she was? Staring at the piles of documents detailing the separation from Phoenix Enterprises, I replied with a single word. "Coming?" I packed my briefcase and headed down. On the way back to the villa, I feigned sleep, remaining silent. Clara didn't say a word either. The moment we walked inside, we saw the newly hired maid respectfully placing a plate of cut fruit in front of Alex. "Sir, please have some fruit." I heard it. Clara heard it. She remained silent. I, however, was done playing dumb. I asked the maid directly, "If he's the sir of this house, then what am I?" Alex, finally noticing me, waved his hands at the maid in a fluster. "Aunt, you've got it wrong. I'm just the nephew. He's the uncle." Clara finally spoke, her voice calm and cold as she addressed the maid. "Go and collect your pay from the housekeeper. Your services are no longer required." She then turned to me. "Leo, is this handled to your satisfaction?" Our eyes met, and I felt a profound weariness. I didn't want to say another word. "I'm tired. Don't call me for dinner." I headed straight for the stairs. I had barely taken a few steps when a strange groaning noise came from above. I looked up, and my pupils dilated in horror. The massive crystal chandelier in the living room was swaying precariously, its moorings giving way. It was about to crash right down on Clara and Alex. Instinct took over. I darted toward Clara in her wheelchair, ready to shove her out of the way. Just then, a sentence flashed before my eyes. Sharp and urgent. "Don't go over there. Clara's legs are fine. She and Alex won't get hurt." It was too late. I was already in motion, throwing myself under the path of the falling chandelier. The moment before it hit, in that split second of terrifying clarity, I saw Clara leap up from her wheelchair, yanking Alex to safety and shielding him with her own body. Then, a deafening crash, a searing pain in my head, and everything went black. When I woke up, the first thing I heard was the unbearable, rhythmic sound of sloshing water. I struggled to pry open my heavy eyelids, and through a blurred, hazy vision I saw Alex, completely naked, his body moving in a steady rhythm, and Clara, my supposedly wheelchair-bound wife, was perched on a chair by the window, her perfectly functional legs wrapped tightly around him, her fingers digging into his thighs as she helped him move. Their low, breathy moans filled the air, but I didn't care what they were doing. My entire focus, my entire world, had narrowed down to one single impossible fact. Clara's legs were fine. As if sensing my thoughts, another sentence appeared before me, burning itself into my mind. Clara's legs were never injured. She married you to gain more benefits for the Vance family and to hide her affair with Alex. The words made my head throb with a pain so intense it felt like needles were stabbing into my brain. A pained groan escaped my lips. The sounds from the corner of the room abruptly stopped. I sensed their eyes on me, boring into my prone form on the floor. But then, after a moment of silence, they resumed their activities. I have no idea when they finished. Eventually, when my vision cleared and I managed to open my eyes again, the hospital room was empty. A soft knock sounded at the door, and my assistant walked in. "Leo, how are you feeling? How's the injury?" I reluctantly touched the sore, bandaged spot on my head. My voice was hoarse. "Nothing major. What's the status?" "The projects with Phoenix Enterprises have been reviewed," he reported. "Contracts are confirmed for termination. The ones that haven't started yet are being subcontracted out. I just needed your final input on the ongoing ones." "For those already underway," I instructed, my voice firm, "reach out to the companies that were bidding against us before. For the ones nearing completion, wrap them up as quickly as possible." I paused, another memory surfacing. "The shopping center we were building with them, isn't that about to launch?" I hesitated for a fraction of a second. Then my resolve hardened. "Sell our stake in it, too. That shopping center had been a joint venture to commemorate our engagement, meant to be a symbol of our two families, of our relationship. I had poured my blood, sweat, and tears into that project. But now that I had chosen to break away from Clara and the Thorns completely, it held no value for me anymore." My assistant looked troubled. "Leo, the opening ceremony is today. Clara already took Alex there." Stunned, I watched the live stream on my assistant's tablet. On stage, Clara and Alex stood side by side like a happy couple, unveiling a large plaque. The logo on it wasn't the L and C we had designed together. It read C&A, for Clara and Alex. I stared hard at those two letters, my hand, hooked up to an IV, clenching into a tight fist. Bright red blood began to flow back up the tube, but I didn't even feel the pain. My assistant had to frantically call a nurse to fix the drip and apply a new bandage. I was still in a daze when my mother called, her voice trembling with fury. "Leo, that woman took her nephew to the opening ceremony and even changed the mall's name at the last minute. The entire city is talking about it. She has no respect for you or our family at all." Her voice softened slightly. Don't worry. Your father and I have already spoken to the Thorns. Her grandfather has agreed to send Alex abroad and to change the mall's name back. A warmth spread through my chest, knowing my parents were fighting for me, though I knew it was no longer necessary. Mom, I began, about to tell her my decision, when Clara herself wheeled into the hospital room, shattering any lingering illusion that her ability to stand had just been a momentary fluke. Mom, Clara's here. I'll be home in a couple of days. We need to talk then. I hung up and looked at Clara, my face devoid of any warmth. She had abandoned her usual gentle facade and got straight to the point. You've been through a lot recently. I've transferred the title for the West City development land to your name. Please, talk to my grandfather. Let Alex stay. I remembered that land. When the Vance family was struggling years ago, I had offered a fortune for it. But the Thorns wouldn't budge. Now she was giving it away so easily, all for Alex. The irony was suffocating. Sure, I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. But you have to promise me something first. Okay, she agreed quickly. Anything I can do. Stand up, I replied coldly. Her eyes flickered with an unreadable emotion before she lowered her gaze, feigning vulnerability. You saw me stand up. I thought I could, but after that, the doctor said it was just a temporary surge of adrenaline. What kind of adrenaline rush, I wondered, had kept her and Alex passionately tangled together from the moment the chandelier fell all the way to this hospital? A wave of self-deprecation washed over me. I chuckled bitterly, but didn't press her further. For the next 2 weeks, whether out of guilt or some other twisted motive, Clara stayed by my side, caring for me with such meticulous attention that even the doctors and nurses couldn't help but praise her devotion. 2 weeks later, on the day I was finally discharged, she canceled all her company meetings to personally take me home. The moment we walked in, I was surprised by the sight that greeted me. The entire villa was adorned with flowers, and a romantic candle-lit dinner was set on the dining table. How do you like it? She asked softly, her eyes full of the same affection she had shown me 3 years ago when she proposed. Who doesn't like romance? But this was a performance, a facade, and it was no longer what I wanted. Not since I had discovered the truth about her and Alex. What's all this for? I asked, suppressing the storm of emotions inside me. She didn't answer, instead gently seating me at the table and serving my favorite dishes. These are all your favorites. I cooked them myself. Try some. As the candlelight flickered, I looked into her gentle eyes, but every bite I took tasted like ash. Then, she pulled out a velvet ring box. Inside was a simple band sparkling with tiny embedded diamonds. I made this ring myself, Leo. I wanted to make up for not being able to give you a proper wedding ring. Her gaze was full of love, but all I could see were the cruel, silent words floating before my eyes. The ring is a lie. She had her assistant buy it. Every night during your hospital stay, she snuck off to be with Alex. Thanks to the milk incident, I no longer doubted the truth of these strange visions. I just didn't know when her affair with Alex had started, or just how long I had been played for a fool. My throat tightened. I was about to speak when her phone rang, a sharp, piercing sound that cut through the romantic charade. Her face shifted the moment she saw the caller ID, and she hurried out of the room to answer it. "Alex?" I heard her say, her voice laced with concern. "What's wrong?" Then his trembling voice came through, clear as a bell. "Clara, Grandpa wants me to get engaged to Chloe next week. I don't want to. I don't even like her. I'd rather die than marry her." "Don't say that," Clara scolded him gently. "Stay put. I'm coming over right now." As she wheeled herself toward the door, she left without a single word of explanation to me. The room, which had felt cloyingly intimate moments before, suddenly felt vast and empty. The act was over. I stared at the ring still sitting in its box on the table and let out a dry, ironic chuckle. I picked up the box and, without a second thought, tossed the whole thing into the trash can, discarding the last traces of my attachment to her. With that settled, I headed upstairs to pack my things. Amidst my belongings, a crumpled piece of silk clothing on the windowsill caught my eye. As I picked it up, the words appeared again. Alex wore this during yesterday's escapade with Clara. My stomach churned instantly. I hurled the clothes into the nearest trash bin as if they were contaminated, resisting the urge to scrub my hands raw. Just as I did, more words appeared. A quiet, insistent urge. Check the basement. There's a surprise waiting for you. Assuming it was just more evidence of Clara and Alex's sordid activities, I hesitated. But curiosity, a morbid, self-destructive kind, got the better of me. In the basement, as the fluorescent lights flickered on, I froze. The entire room was lined with mirrors. On an open shelf along one wall was a horrifying collection of toys and implements, things that made you blush just looking at them. Without exception, every single one looked like it had been used, and used often. I felt a profound numbness spread through me. I didn't want to look anymore. I turned around, left the basement, and didn't look back. When I got back to the living room, my assistant was already waiting for me. He quickly handed me a folder. "Leo, this is the contract that needs your signature today." I took a quick look. It seemed like a standard real estate contract. I picked up a pen, ready to sign my name on the dotted line, when the words appeared again, this time with a mocking, incredulous tone. "He's the CEO of a major corporation, and he can't even see the trap in this contract?" Dumb and boring. No wonder Clara can't part with her nephew. I stopped short, my pen hovering over the paper. I went through the contract again, this time with a fine-toothed comb, and a cold sweat broke out on my back when I spotted the loopholes. If I had signed it, Orion Corporation would have faced bankruptcy due to a massive hidden funding issue. Who was behind this? As I mentally scanned through a list of potential enemies, the words slowly floated into my vision again. A single name that struck my heart like a bolt of lightning. Clara. The final piece of the puzzle clicked into place. Clara realized she couldn't keep her affair under wraps forever, so she planned for Orion Corp to go bankrupt, intending to take full control of it herself. I had no reason to doubt these words anymore. I had seen her ruthless side in the boardroom countless times. I just never suspected she would turn that ruthlessness on me. She had always been so confident, so sure that no matter what she did, I would never leave her. It was time to shatter that delusion completely. I sent my assistant away, then walked over to the custom-built wine cellar we'd designed together. I grabbed a golf club from my bag in the hall and began to smash everything. As the expensive vintage wines shattered against the walls, memories flashed through my mind. Clara, helping me place each bottle in the cabinet, cuddling in my arms with a sweet smile, saying, "The wine doesn't get people drunk, people get themselves drunk." Clara, insisting on helping hang our wedding photos, even from her wheelchair. With each swing, I was destroying a memory, shattering a lie. When I was finished, the rich, cloying scent of spilled wine filled the villa. I didn't hesitate. I walked out of the house, tossing a lighter behind me as I went. In an instant, the villa was engulfed in flames. The fire not only consumed the sickening basement and all its secrets, but it also burned away every last feeling, every last memory I had of her. As the ashes began to float into the night sky, the familiar Thorne family Bentley pulled up in front of the blazing inferno. As my own car pulled away, I caught a glimpse of Clara and Alex's panicked, horrified expressions in my rearview mirror. Elsewhere, Clara waited until the fire was finally extinguished. She surveyed the charred ruins of what was once our home, while Alex complained beside her. "Clara, how did this fire even start? Now all our treasured toys are gone. But you'll get more for me, right?" Of course, she replied with a gentle smile, though my face suddenly flashed in her mind. She remembered the care, the love I had poured into every detail of this house. Pushing Alex away, she said, I need to find Leo. He valued this house more than anything. If it's destroyed, he'll be furious. Ignoring Alex's protests, she got into her car and sped toward the Orion Corporation headquarters. On the way, she tried calling me, but my phone went straight to voicemail. She thought about my recent coldness, and a strange, deep unease began to settle in her heart. Just then, her phone buzzed with a series of urgent messages from her assistant. Clara, something big has happened. Check the official Orion Corp Twitter feed. Leo is holding a press conference right now. With furrowed brows, she clicked the link. Her phone screen switched to a live feed. There I was, sitting in the center of a long table, my eyes sharp and piercing as I stared directly into the camera. I spoke each word with cold, clear determination. My divorce proceedings with Clara Thorne have officially begun. Furthermore, Orion Corporation has terminated all partnerships and joint ventures with Phoenix Enterprises. From this day forward, any project associated with Orion Corporation will never include Phoenix Enterprises. This is not a temporary measure. This is until death do us part. Clara froze, stunned, her mind completely blank. Every word I said was a hammer blow. Divorce. No more ties between Orion and Phoenix. No peace until death. The reality of it all hit her with the force of a physical impact. Before she could process it, her car had stopped at the entrance of my building. She stared at her now dark phone screen, motionless for a long time. She didn't remember how she got back to her own office at Phoenix Enterprises. A knock on her door jolted her back to reality. A subordinate walked in, placing a thick manila envelope on her desk. Miss Thorne, this was just delivered by Mr. Vance's assistant. She looked at the envelope, which she knew contained the divorce papers, but she didn't reach for it. For a long time, she just sat there, her complexion pale, her dark eyes swirling with a storm of emotions. Her assistant quietly stepped forward, took the papers out of the envelope, set them on the desk, and then ushered everyone else out of the room. The door shut, leaving the office in a deathly quiet. After some time, Clara regained a semblance of composure. Her gaze drifted to the papers on her desk. They lay there, silent and absolute. She dragged her stiff body to the desk, her hand trembling as she reached for them. My signature was already there, the ink black and bold. The handwriting was smooth, fluid, showing not a single trace of hesitation. Seeing my name, so final, so resolute, felt like a physical slash across her heart. It was in that moment that she finally, piercingly, understood. I truly wanted a divorce. I wanted to sever everything that had ever connected us. Thinking of this, her chest ached, and a faint, unfamiliar panic began to bubble up from deep within her. She didn't sign. She threw the divorce papers into the trash. Just then, Alex came into the office. In recent days, his desires had been more than satisfied, and he carried himself with a rosy, contented demeanor, his eyes captivating and bright. Clara, what's wrong? He asked, his eyes immediately lighting up at the sight of the divorce papers in the trash can. He opened his arms, pulling her rigid body into an embrace, his voice a low, hushed whisper. Is Leo divorcing you? I'm not getting a divorce, Clara finally managed to say, her voice shaking uncontrollably. Alex paused, biting his lip in frustration. Why not? Don't you like me anymore? He and Clara weren't blood-related. They were only aunt and nephew by a technicality of marriage within the extended family. For years, because of her unique disposition and his insatiable needs, she had been the one to help him manage his desires, using her own body as a remedy. Though sometimes, when he was truly ravenous, he couldn't stop himself from seeking out other women, he genuinely cared for Clara. She had always been his protector. Clara broke free from his grasp and said firmly, "This is different." His voice grew agitated. "How is it different?" She wasn't sure herself. There was just a voice deep inside her, screaming at her that she couldn't get a divorce. It felt as if signing those papers would be a mistake she would regret for the rest of her life. After calming Alex down, she received a call from the Thorne family estate, summoning her home immediately. My press conference had caused an uproar. Our two families, always on the best of terms, were now locked in a bitter public standoff. The speculation was rampant. Then, the incident from a month ago resurfaced. Clara and Alex at the mall unveiling, the last-minute name change. The fact that they were only aunt and nephew in name was not a well-kept secret among the city's elite. The whispers started. Clara was having an improper relationship with her nephew, I had found out, and this was the explosive result. The media had caught on and were ready to run with the scandalous story, but the Thornes had paid a hefty sum to suppress it, at least for now. Late that night, in the grand hall of the Thorne family home, the atmosphere was tense and oppressive. Her grandfather, the patriarch, wasn't speaking, and no one else dared to. As the main cause of this public humiliation, Clara sat silently with her head down. On the way there, her assistant had messaged her. I had used the situation to swiftly and cleanly sever all business ties between our two families. Their connections ran deep. For me to have been able to do it so quickly meant I must have been planning this for a long time. When did he start? She wondered. Finally, her grandfather spoke, his eyes looking past her. "Why didn't Alex come back with you?" Clara paused. "He wasn't feeling well. I told him to rest at home." The old man huffed, not believing a word of it. "Since we're all here today, you had better explain what, exactly, is going on between you and Alex." She stayed silent for a long time before speaking softly. "Alex and I are just aunt and nephew." At this, her grandfather's anger boiled over. "You're still not telling the truth." Clara pressed her lips together, refusing to say more. Seeing her defiance, her mother stepped in. "Dad, Clara practically raised Alex herself. It's natural that they're close." But even as she spoke, her voice faded. Everyone in that room knew what the relationship between Clara and Alex was. Her grandfather waved his hand dismissively. "Let's send Alex abroad in a few days. Given all this uproar, he'll only face judgment if he stays here. He can lay low for a while." At these words, Clara's head snapped up. She knew her grandfather meant well, but there was no way Alex could leave her right now. In the end, she confessed to their relationship but blamed everything on herself. "This whole mess is my fault. Alex is young and easily influenced. Please don't blame him. And please don't send him abroad. He's grown up here. I worry for his safety." Her parents also intervened, and eventually, after a long and heated debate, her grandfather sighed, agreeing not to send Alex away. But something had to be done. Public opinion was not favorable for Phoenix Enterprises. If the Vances could be placated, if they could announce a peaceful resolution, it would be a great help. "Tomorrow," her grandfather instructed her parents, "take Clara to the Vance family home to apologize. Be sincere, and have her sign the divorce papers with Leo to end this marriage quickly. We owe him that much." Her father quickly agreed, but Clara was still unwilling. "I will apologize to the Vances tomorrow, and I will provide compensation, but I will not get a divorce." This was the last straw. Her grandfather jumped up from his chair and raised his heavy rosewood cane, bringing it down hard on her shoulder. She sat in her wheelchair, unable to dodge, and didn't even try. She bit her lip, stifling a cry of pain as her parents looked on, torn but too afraid to intervene. "You won't divorce!" he thundered, his hand trembling with rage. "After what you did with Alex, why do you think Leo will ever forgive you? This is not up for discussion. You must divorce." "I won't divorce," she repeated, her voice firm despite the stinging in her heart. Her grandfather gave her an ultimatum. "Fine. Then you must choose. It's either Leo or Alex. Divorce Leo or we send Alex abroad, and you will never contact him again." Clara didn't want either outcome. Alex needed her. And after all this time, she realized she had genuine feelings for me, feelings she had taken for granted. But faced with an impossible choice, she had to weigh her priorities. Finally, reluctantly, she chose Alex. The next day, Clara and her parents arrived at the Vance estate with lavish gifts, ready to apologize. The last time she had been here was right before our wedding. She had been welcomed with open arms. Now it was different. They were left waiting at the door for a long time before being shown in. My parents adored me, and Clara had put me through hell. They were lucky they weren't thrown out on the spot. My parents were in the formal living room, drinking tea, and didn't even look up as the Thorns entered. Clara glanced around, her eyes searching for me, but I was nowhere to be seen. Her parents made some awkward small talk, but my parents remained silent, the air heavy with their disapproval. My mother finally nudged her, urging her to speak. Clara approached them softly. "Mom, Dad, My father cut her off gruffly. "Don't call us that. Just say what you need to say." Clara stiffened, her voice barely a whisper. "I'm sorry about what I did to Leo. Is he home? Can I talk to him?" My mother set her cup down with a sharp click. "Leo isn't here. Say what you have to say to us." When Clara remained silent, her mother tried to smooth things over, but it was no use. My parents, their patience worn thin, tossed the divorce agreement onto the coffee table. "Our lawyer drew this up. The asset division is more than fair. If you have no issues, just sign it. Then pick a day to finalize the proceedings with Leo. After that, our families will have no further ties." Clara stood still, unmoving. "I need to see Leo," she stated firmly, "or I won't sign." Everyone's faces hardened. Clara had crossed a line. She showed no sincerity, and she dared to cling to their son after everything. Just then, footsteps sounded on the grand staircase. Everyone turned to look. It was me, slowly descending, my hand on the railing. My mother rushed to my side. "Leo, I thought I told you to stay in your room." I patted her hand reassuringly, then faced Clara. I had overheard everything. "Can you sign it now?" I asked calmly. I knew she wouldn't sign easily. My assistant had told me she'd thrown the last copy in the trash. I didn't believe for a second that her reluctance stemmed from any lingering affection for me. Ignoring the visible pain in her chest, she replied, "Let's talk, privately." I nodded, gave my parents a comforting look, and led her out to the garden gazebo. The weather was perfect, the sun shining in a cloudless sky, and the scent of blooming flowers filled the air. We sat facing each other, the first time we had been this calm together since I had discovered her betrayal. But the calmness was only on the surface. Inside, Clara was a wreck, her hands clenched tightly, her gaze locked on mine. The divorce papers lay on the table between us, a pen resting beside them. It was as if I expected a few words from her, and then she'd sign and walk away. The thought of my eagerness to cut ties with her made her own anger begin to swirl. Seeing her silence, I finally spoke. "What did you want to talk about?" Her voice was hoarse. "I'll end things with Alex. I can give you whatever resources you want." She paused, her voice choking with emotion. "So, can we not get a divorce?" I was stunned for a moment, then I let out a harsh, mocking laugh. "Really? You think you can fool me again? Say one thing and then hide him behind my back? Clara, you're an adult. Isn't it time to stop playing these childish games?" She was taken aback, at a loss for words. "I'm serious this time," she stammered. "I haven't lied to you." If only that were true. If only she had been honest from the start. Maybe we wouldn't have ended up here. I valued our history. But disappointment had followed disappointment. Heartache had followed heartache, until I was completely and utterly done. Back then, her eyes were only for Alex. She never even noticed my pain. Now that I had finally given up, she was trying to win me back. It was laughable. "Is that so?" I said, my smile filled with sarcasm. "But after everything you've done, how am I supposed to trust you? And even if you are telling the truth now, it doesn't matter to me anymore. Just sign the papers. If you want to drag this out, I've got time. One way or another, I am divorcing you." I pushed the agreement toward her, my expression indifferent. She lowered her eyes, feeling like her heart was being ripped apart. So I could be this cold, this hurtful. Seeing her still hesitating, my face turned to ice. "Clara, I have a video you might find interesting." She looked up, surprised. I sneered, pulling out my phone and playing a short clip. It was footage of her and Alex, intimately entangled, a scene that left nothing to the imagination. Her face turned ashen, and she tightened her fists. "When was this taken?" I put my phone away. "You two were messing around behind my back every day. Did you really think I didn't know? You should realize what releasing this video would do to Phoenix Enterprises, right?" Of course, she understood. Releasing this would confirm the scandal, tarnish the Thorne family name, and cripple her company. "Just sign it," I said, my patience gone. "Don't waste any more of our time." Looking at the woman I once loved, I now felt only a cold, profound disgust. She stared at me for a long time, dazed. When did the love in my eyes fade away? Disoriented, she finally picked up the pen, her hand trembling as she signed her name. Seeing her signature on the paper, I silently breathed a sigh of relief. "Meet me at the Civil Affairs office at 8 tomorrow morning," I told her, taking my copy of the agreement. "I have time then." With that, I turned and walked away without looking back. The next morning I was up at 6. I showered, styled my hair, and picked out a sharp suit. You'd think I was going on a date, not finalizing a divorce. For me, saying goodbye to this failed marriage felt like a rebirth. I arrived at the courthouse promptly at 8, but I'd been too optimistic. Clara was a whole hour late. By the time it was nearly 10, I couldn't help but call her. She finally answered, the sounds of traffic in the background. "How much longer?" I asked coldly. "Sorry, I'm stuck in traffic," she said casually. "It'll be about another hour." I knew the route from her house to the courthouse. It never had traffic. Did she think stalling would change anything? "Hurry up," I snapped. "I don't have time to waste with you." I hung up and found a nearby cafe to wait. By 11:30, she finally showed up, looking like a mess. Her hair was disheveled, and she had dark circles under her eyes. "Sorry I'm late," she forced a smile. "Let's go," I said, turning and walking into the building. We approached the window, answered the clerk's basic questions, and waited. As the staff member took out the divorce certificate, ready to stamp it, Clara turned to me, her eyes pleading. "Leo, are we really going through with this?" I was silent for a moment before speaking coldly. "We are here today because of you, not me." As I finished, the clerk brought the stamp down with a decisive thud. Our marriage was officially over. We each took our copy of the dark red certificate. I merely glanced at mine before stuffing it into my pocket without a trace of sorrow. We walked out of the registry. It had started to drizzle. Clara stood there, watching as I shielded my head and ran through the rain to my car, got in, and drove away without a backward glance. For a moment, she felt the insane urge to get up from her wheelchair and chase after me. But she was tired of pretending. She saw no reason for it anymore. When she got home, The house was dark. A tall figure rushed toward her, and she tensed, then relaxed as the familiar scent of Alex filled the air. He had snuck out from the family estate where he'd been grounded. He seemed overheated, out of it, his hands frantically roaming over her body. Annoyed, and not in the mood, she grabbed his wandering hands. "Didn't you drink the special medicine I got for you?" she asked, exasperated. For years she had been working with doctors overseas to develop a potion that could substitute for the energy he needed to help him live a normal life. His eyes welled up with tears. "Clara, don't you want me anymore?" he sobbed. Seeing him cry broke her heart. After all, she had raised him. She wiped his tears and patiently persuaded him to take his medicine. Afterward, his fever subsided, but he still looked down, sulking. "When I become normal," he said, "you won't do this with me anymore, will you?" "Of course not," she said, hugging him. "I paid those doctors so you could have a normal life, so you can live happily like everyone else." But he interpreted it differently, thinking she wanted to push him away. He wasn't blind. He had seen her feelings for me, and the thought made him crazily jealous. He slipped out of the house later that night while she was working. She only realized it when her assistant sent her 2 videos. One showed Alex at a bar, drinking and flirting with other women. The other featured me, her freshly divorced husband, in a similar setting. Clara sat in her office chair, glued to the video of me. I was in a VIP booth, surrounded by several stunning women, one of whom was cozied up right next to me. I didn't push her away. Instead, I leaned over and whispered something in her ear. With a thud, Clara tossed her phone onto the table, her face tense. The video kept replaying in her head, making her chest feel tight. After a while, she picked up the phone and dialed my number. After about 30 seconds, someone picked up. It wasn't me. A sultry female voice came through the phone. "Hello? Who is it this late?" Clara's face turned to stone. "Who are you? Where's Leo?" The woman on the other end seemed flustered. "He's in the shower. Do you need him for something, sis?" The word sis echoed in Clara's mind, sparking an ironic laugh. "Get him on the phone," she demanded. There was shuffling. Then the woman called out, "Hey, a Clara is calling for you." A muffled voice, my voice, came through. "Just hang up, and block her while you're at it. I forgot to do it earlier." The call ended abruptly. Clara sat frozen, imagining me and that woman together, simmering with an anger she couldn't place. It was only much later that she remembered Alex, realizing with a jolt that I had consumed her thoughts so completely she had forgotten all about him. Meanwhile, after my shower, the woman from the bar approached me eagerly. She'd accidentally spilled a drink on me, a classic ploy. I'd gone along with it, wanting to celebrate my newfound freedom, but that was as far as it went. "No thanks," I said, curving my lips into a polite smile. "I'm not interested." I transferred her some money for her trouble and left. Divorced, I poured myself into my company. Over a month flew by. One evening, as I was leaving the office, an unexpected figure caught my eye in the underground parking garage. It was Clara. She looked thinner, her face worn, no longer radiant. She just stared at me, not saying a word. She could stand now, the result of countless treatments she'd undergone without my knowledge. Her miracle seemed like a sick joke. I remembered how she had deceived me, letting me believe I was the reason she would be in a wheelchair forever. The guilt had weighed on me for years. Now, knowing it was all a lie to cover up her affair with Alex, all I felt was a chilling disgust. The wind howled through the garage. Finally, I spoke. "Do you need something?" Her lips parted, but then closed again. She had so much to say, but facing my indifferent expression, she was lost for words. She only realized what she'd lost when it was truly gone. This past month, late at night, She couldn't stop thinking of me, of my kindness, and with each memory, her regret grew. Impatient with her silence, I said, "If there's nothing, I'll be off." I moved past her, but she grabbed my wrist, her voice pleading, "Don't go, Leo. I have something to say." My face turned to ice, my words cut like frost. "Let go. You're filthy." She froze, the words piercing her heart. I jerked my arm away from her grip and pulled out a tissue, wiping the spot where she had touched me as if cleansing myself of a contaminant. Watching this, she felt a sharp, indescribable pain. She followed me, her voice desperate. "I've really regretted it lately. Hurting you for Alex, ruining us. I've realized I truly love you. Can we try again?" I stopped, stunned, then laughed. "Clara, what are you up to this time? If you really love Alex, just tell your grandfather and marry him. Stop using me as a shield." I got in my car and drove off, her fading silhouette in my rearview mirror. Since that press conference, I had decided to cut all ties. The mysterious messages had stopped appearing, but I was grateful for the truth they had revealed. Back home, I showered, washing away the fatigue and the lingering scent of her perfume. As I was about to sleep, an unfamiliar number texted me. "Leo, I won't give up. I'll prove it to you." I knew it was her. With a single tap, I blocked the number. The next morning I drove to the airport. I had someone to pick up. The thought of seeing them made me feel unexpectedly happy. 5 minutes after I arrived, a fair-skinned woman emerged from the arrivals gate. I waved, "Hey, Sophie, over here!" Sophie, my college senior, looked up, and a gentle smile spread across her face. We shared a quick hug. "Leo, long time no see." "It's been a while," I smiled back. "Thanks for letting me pick you up." "How many years has it been since graduation? And you're still calling me by my full name?" she teased. The awkwardness of the years melted away as we chatted on the way out of the airport. She was smart, kind, and we had been close in college, almost inseparable, which had led to a huge fight between Clara and me back then. But everything changed when Sophie went abroad for her junior year. It had been years since we'd last met. She was back to visit her elderly grandmother. "How long are you staying this time?" I asked as we drove. "Not sure," she said, her eyes twinkling. "But definitely longer than it'll take for you to get used to just calling me Sophie." I chuckled, and she playfully acknowledged my subsequent attempts to use her first name. She then turned the conversation back to me. "I heard you and Clara divorced. I was a bit taken aback. I had distanced myself from her after everything that had happened." "Sorry," she apologized quickly. "Didn't mean to bring up anything painful." I shook my head, mustering a smile. "It's all right. Yeah, I'm divorced. It doesn't feel like a loss, though. More like a relief." After dropping her off, I went back to the office, burying myself in work. That evening, a message from Sophie popped up. "Still working overtime?" "Yeah," I typed back. "Figured you hadn't eaten," her reply came. "I ordered you some sushi. Should be there soon." Just as I sent a thank you, my assistant knocked. "Leo, your delivery is here." He placed 2 identical takeout bags on my desk. I snapped a picture and sent it to Sophie. "Why did you order so much?" "I only ordered 1 set," she replied. Confused, I inspected the packages. Both had my name and address. This particular sushi was pricey and notoriously hard to get. Clara used to get it for me. Staring at the 2 boxes, I eventually tossed one, the one I knew was from Clara, into the trash. I opened the other and dug in. The familiar taste was there, but this time it had a bitter aftertaste I couldn't quite place. People change. Who can stay by your side forever? I suppressed the thought and got back to work. These days, Sophie messaged me frequently, her enthusiasm a welcome change. But another, less welcome pattern had also emerged. Knowing I wouldn't see her, Clara had started sending things to my office every day. Luxurious gifts, roses, designer watches. I opened a velvet box on my desk to reveal a sophisticated timepiece, gave it a quick glance, then shut it and set it aside. I called my assistant. From now on, if Clara sends anything, just leave it downstairs. Don't bring it up. That night, I had dinner with Sophie. As we strolled back from the restaurant, the chilly evening air made me shiver. Sophie quickly unwound the scarf from her neck and wrapped it around me. I paused, catching the faint scent of jasmine, my cheeks warming. Just as I was about to thank her, a familiar female voice cut through the night. "Leo!" Startled, I turned to see Clara approaching, her face a mask of anger. Sophie quickly stepped in front of me as Clara strode toward us, her eyes fixed on Sophie with a cold, hostile glare. Even after all these years, Clara recognized her instantly. She couldn't stand Sophie back in college, and seeing her here now, conveniently returned just as we were divorcing, seemed too planned. The tension was palpable. I stepped out from behind Sophie. Clara's expression softened slightly as she looked at me. "Leo, did you receive the gifts I sent to your office?" "Yeah," I replied blankly. "I had my assistant toss them. Let's not waste each other's time with pointless gestures." Clara flinched, but forced a smile. "If you don't like them, then forget it." I sighed, wanting this to be over. Sophie caught on, linking her arm with mine. "Let's go, Leo. Can you drop me home?" I smiled and agreed, turning to leave with her. Clara stood frozen, watching us go, her heart feeling like it had a gaping hole letting in an icy wind. A few days later, at a charity gala, I ran into Sophie again. We spent the evening chatting, making the dull event more bearable. From a distance, Clara watched us, her dark eyes following my every move. The smile on my face felt like a sharp knife twisting in her gut. Justin, standing beside her, tried to get her attention, but she was completely oblivious, lost in her obsession with me. Seeing this, his own resentment simmered. Later, feeling uneasy from too much champagne, I excused myself to the restroom. As I turned to leave, Alex appeared before me. "What do you want?" I asked warily. He let out a sarcastic laugh. "Mandy's so smitten with you now. I don't get it. You're divorced. Why still toy with her?" My demeanor turned icy. "Unlike you, some of us don't need to manipulate people to earn their affection." My words hit a nerve. "You're so smug," he snarled. "But Clara's feelings for me are true. She told me herself." "Her feelings are irrelevant to me," I cut him off, weary of the confrontation. "Because if she truly loved you, you wouldn't need to stand here justifying it to me." I walked around him and left. As Sophie and I left the gala, she suddenly turned to me. "Gavin, it's still early. Can you come with me somewhere?" Intrigued, I agreed. She drove us to the small grove behind our old university, a place full of memories. We sat on a bench by the lake, the peaceful atmosphere a balm to my stressed soul. "Why did you bring me here?" I finally asked. She fell silent for a long while before speaking softly. "I just felt you've been too stressed lately, and there's another reason." She confessed that she'd had feelings for me back in college. I was taken aback, unsure how to react. She was gentle and attentive, everything Clara wasn't. But I had just escaped a failed marriage. I wasn't ready for another relationship. Sensing my hesitation, she gave me a reassuring smile. "I've never expected you to agree to be with me. I don't want my feelings to be a burden. If you're not willing, I won't push you." I felt a wave of relief and gratitude. "Thank you for your feelings, Sophie. You're amazing. I'm sure you'll meet someone who deserves you." She smiled, hiding her disappointment. The awkwardness dissolved. After she dropped me off at my apartment building, I watched her drive away, then turned and headed inside. I was exhausted and just wanted to sleep, but as I exited the elevator on my floor, I saw her. Clara, drunk and disheveled, was sitting on the floor in front of my door. The strong smell of alcohol hit me, and I frowned. "Clara, wake up," I said, crouching down and tapping her shoulder. "Don't sleep at my door." She opened her eyes groggily, and a pained smile crossed her face when she recognized me. "Leo, you're finally back." "Since you're up, go home," I said, my expressionless. "I need to rest." She stumbled as she stood, her eyes red. "Leo, I know I was wrong. I'll agree to whatever you say. Can you just give me one more chance?" Seeing me and Sophie together at the gala had clearly driven her over the edge. I remained silent, my face stern. She reached for me, but I dodged her touch. She suddenly hugged me from behind, burying her head in my back, her voice cracking. "Leo, I don't want to let go. Please, give me another chance." I frowned with irritation. I tried to push her away, but then I froze. She was crying, real, shuddering sobs. For a moment, my resolve wavered. But then the memories, the lies, the betrayal, the basement came flooding back. I shook off the feeling and forcefully pushed her away. "Clinging to me like this just makes me dislike you more," I said, my voice cold and final. "Clara, if you truly regret what you did, then let go. Stop bothering me." She stood there, stunned, her eyes filled with a pain so deep it was almost shocking. I paid her no heed. I walked inside my apartment and shut the door firmly behind me. Sophie stayed in the city for almost half a month before heading back to the States. On the day of her departure, I saw her off at the airport, sharing a hug and wishing her well. After that, Clara continued to pester me for a while, but I chose to ignore her, focusing instead on my own life. Under my leadership, Orion Corporation thrived. I gradually found more time to spend with my parents, to travel, to explore the world. From then on, Clara Thorne was no longer a part of my life. Awaiting me was a vast, open world, and a life of true freedom.